What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and of course DK in the background running the show. We are excited to talk about this Week 2 matchup. Can't wait to get to it.
Been waiting a long time for this one, Jimbo.
Oh my gosh, I know. I feel like it's been on the calendar forever. Certainly one that we're circling. And while the game is different than we hoped it would look, I still think there's a lot to talk about here, a lot of meat on the bone. But Glenn, a couple things before we get to it, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, if you love the show and you're enjoying the channel, sub. We appreciate it. It's the easiest way to support. Number two, we have a sponsor for this show that we're very gracious for, a great partner that we've been able to develop a partnership with, and that is MyBookie. MyBookie is really easy to use. Look, you play, they pay, you win, right? The really cool thing, yeah, exactly. The really cool thing that MyBookie is doing right now is that if you go to their website, mybookie.ag, and you put in the promo code 410, it's 3 numbers. A monkey can type that, guys. Put in 410. They will match your initial contribution up to $1,000. I think that's really awesome. So go check it out. I mean, it's an extra $1,000 online to start gambling on Sunday. Promo code is 410. Go check it out. If you have any questions about it, hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, or right here on YouTube. But appreciate the sponsor for this show. As we talk about this Week 2 matchup, Glenn, where should we start, man? How you feeling overall about this game, man?
Well, look, there's no hiding the fact that the Ravens have once again dealt with another couple of injuries coming out of that Raider game, and they're to some key positions. The biggest one, in my opinion, of course, is Ronnie Stanley being out of practice, dealing with an ankle injury. Now, the reports are now that they don't think it's going to be a season ender. So I guess that's the silver lining. But right now, as it stands, Alejandro Villanueva is going to be penciled in at left tackle, so returning back to the position he played his entire career with Pittsburgh at. And Patrick McCarry is going in at right tackle because, of course, also in that Raider game, we lost Tyree Phillips, which also doesn't appear to be a season ender, but it's definitely going to be a multi-week injury, so he's not going to be here anytime soon. So we got to have Patrick McCarry, hopefully, doing a better job than Big Al did last week. Now, the good thing is, Jimbo, I don't know how much worse he can be than what Al was last week, right? I mean, he was routinely beat by Max Crosby, by Carl Nassib, anyone who lined up over him was giving him some serious fits. And really the same can pretty much be said with Ronnie Stanley. I mean, Yannick Ngakoue was using his speed to get around him. There was issues at both sides of the ball. So at this point, I guess the hope is that Big Al returning to the position in which he's played his whole career at, he'll have increased level of success there, and that maybe McCarry at this point is a better option at right tackle. Who knows? But the good thing is they're not facing Nassib, Ngakoue, Max Crosby, and while they are facing Frank Clark and Chris Jones, Chris Jones more of an interior guy, and I think we feel pretty strong about it. Well, at least.
Yeah, he was doing some work last week on the edge. That's for sure.
He was everywhere. And Frank Clark, now he missed last week. He's been a guy that's kind of had some up and down play throughout the last couple of years, and
he's got a hammy.
Yeah,
so that explosion might not be the same.
Right. So hopefully we see some improved play because there's just no doubt that Lamar needs more time. You can't have 54% of your dropbacks have pressure and expect to have success getting the ball down the field. So they've got to be better. I don't know, maybe some improved play calling to help these guys out. But something's got to be done because, man, it was tough watching Lamar running for his life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you 100% there. So that's, of course, as always, a good place to start talking about those injuries. And of course, one that is also worth mentioning, you guys probably know about, happened a few days ago, but Chris Westry, of course, is just another name on that list. And in fact, John Harbaugh said yesterday, you can keep asking about it. I'm done talking about it. You know what? That's all right. A lot of people were boo-hooing John. I saw folks boo-hooing him on Twitter, calling him a whiny baby and this, that, and the other. But he has his right. That's okay. And, maybe he's extremely superstitious. And the more
or maybe he's just extremely frustrated and pissed off.
Well, yeah. That obviously is a given at this point. He's got to be extremely frustrated. But I wonder if there's some superstition there as well. The more he talks about it, the more it tends to be in the front of people's minds, the more it might be happening. So anyway, there's a lot of interest there. But the other thing I want to do too is take a look back at, before we get into just specifically this game, I kind of want to look at how both teams performed last week to kind of glean some information there. So I want to talk about Glenn, I think I'm saying you have some stats for the Ravens as far as, just general offensive and defensive stats. I kind of want to start there, and then we'll do the same with the Chiefs to kind of break down this matchup, and then we'll talk about our keys and things like that.
Okay. All right. So in week 1, Lamar Jackson went 19 of 30 for 235 yards and a touchdown. Also added 12 carries and 86 yards on the ground. So, numbers wise, you look at that, you say, wow, he had a pretty good game. He had, I think, a 96 quarterback rating. Didn't have a poor completion percentage. He threw for 235 yards, which is up from his season average last year. So on the outset, it looks like if you just look at the stats, you say he had a pretty good game. But we understand the struggles that were to get to that point with that offensive line, and the fact that he was running for some pretty good athletes. So he had a pretty good game and did what he could with what was in front of him, but obviously needs some help from the guys around him and needs to keep the ball on our side. He had those 2 costly fumbles that went the other way that led to 14 points. So he's got to control that ball. I get he was trying to make plays, but you got to secure the ball. That's obviously job number 1 is keep the ball.
Maybe he needs to make the call, dude. He needs to make the call. Get the sensei up here, dude.
Who's that?
Get old Jay Harris up here, man.
Oh, yeah, I know, right?
Because after that, from year 1 to year 2, dude, those fumbles were a thing of the past.
Yeah, he's got to call Josh back up and get him in the ear. But, well, we're not really sure exactly where that stands. But yeah, Tyson Williams went 9 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Of course, that touchdown came on that 35-yard 4th and 1 run. Want to see a little more Tyson Williams, right? I think he had 2 carries or 1 or 2 carries in the entire second half. Bit of a shocker, Jimbo, considering the fact that Latavius Murray out-carried him as far as touches standpoint. Didn't do so production-wise. He only had 28 yards on 10 carries. But how shocked were you to see Tyson Williams not be the leading ball carrier out of the running backs?
Yeah, pretty surprised. And just overall, I was surprised at our passiveness towards our run game. We need to be aggressive with our run game. We need to set the tone with our run game, right? I noticed early that we were, Lamar was getting it out early. He's getting it to his backs, passing and things like that. And that's great. That's great if you don't have the guy who is one of the best at all time at drawing up run plays. But yeah, I think overall, certainly, as far as, to answer your question specifically, I was surprised. It made me think of that Tennessee Titans game when Gus got 9 carries. I think it was 3 carries in that playoff game or something like that. It was just so obvious. It was an obvious blind spot in the offense that it was weird because our whole offense is predicated off that run, the whole thing. And so to me, I think one thing that Greg Roman learned is while those passes, outside to the backs and things like that, the programmed plays are great. They're important, and teaching Lamar the discipline of, okay, read 1, read 2, read 3, check down, right? Going through that, it's nice to see that progression in Lamar instead of saying read 1, read 2, read 3, I'm off, right? Or I'm going to run around back here until something happens. I'm okay seeing that, but it doesn't equate to a run play. While it might on paper, right, might be a gain of 7 yards or 5 yards or whatever, it's different. Other than different than a programmed run play. And we even saw that in that 4th and 1 because the way that our offense is set up, it was 4th and 1. He took it to the house, right? On that check down play. I don't know if that's happening as often, right? Anyway, I just think there was an overall passiveness towards our run game. But yeah, Tyson specifically, a little bit surprised. What do you think his uptick will look like in this game? You think John was in Roman's ear hey, we need to get this kid the ball?
I hope that's the case. But part of me wonders what the confidence level is in Tyson Williams, because if I would have
Call
told
up
you before the
Devante.
game, yeah, well, the fact that they give it Latavius Murray all that run when he just got here, doesn't know the offense, doesn't have that familiarity in the mesh point like we talk about with,
Yep.
and Tyson doesn't really much either, in the sense that he was working primarily with Tyler Huntley during this offseason. So, but you'd think that he would have more familiarity than Latavius Murray, and the fact that they had Latavius in there getting those carries was shocking. So I'm hopeful we see more of Tyson Williams. It could be that they didn't like what they saw out of him pass blocking wise, and that's why they felt better about Murray. I mean, it's kind of a head scratcher, but so I'm kind of on the fence. Do we see an uptick in Tyson, or do we just see him continue to fall down the depth chart as the older veterans get more acclimated and get more time on the field with Lamar? I think that very much could be the case. So,
Well, what about? Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say that's something I'm really going to watch for. Like, who's the
Yeah.
actives, who's the inactives, and then who ends up being. Because I know Greg Roman said there's just in a bell cow type of league now. You don't have that lead back, but who we're going to be. The proof is in the pudding. In those big situations, who's going to be out there? Who's going to be getting the goal line carries, the short yardage carries? Who's going to be trusted to pass block? So just watch the trends on who's in and who's out in those big situations.
Right, absolutely. And then on top of that, I think we learned. It was funny because when Latavius ran for that touchdown, I said, "Man, he looked a little bit like Gus to me," right? And maybe I was just reminiscing because I want 35 out there,
Yeah, we miss him.
But I think we learned that he might not be Gus Edwards. I mean, how good is Gus Edwards? I realized that our offensive line wasn't great, and that didn't do Latavius any favors. And he just got here, he just got the plane, all those things. I just think Gus is different, man. And this might be me being a homer. He's my favorite Raven right now, and I miss having him out there. But, it's one of those things where you're like, you don't know how good you got it till it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Type situation where, man, he's just different. I don't know. I noticed that quickly. However, Tyson was explosive. I'm not even referring to Tyson in this scenario. I'm really more referring to Murray, because I think they're more comparable as players.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you're right. That will be interesting with Devante Freeman coming up and looking to be active in this game. What type of impact do you see him having? Do you think he moves the needle at all?
Man, it's so hard with Devante because he's coming from the Giants that were an absolute dumpster fire and had a horrendous offensive line. Daniel Jones was out for most of the year. So was his poor play a reflection of him, or was it just a reflection of the talent around him? That, I guess, remains to be seen, but a little surprised about Le'Veon Bell not being activated. Unless I missed it, he's still on the practice squad.
Yeah.
And we keep just hearing, well, he needs to get his legs under him. That's odd. It's like, is he taking a while to learn the offense, or is he taking a while to get into game shape? Because he looks, he doesn't look like he's out of shape. He doesn't look like he's got a spare tire, or he's coming in heavy or anything like that. But I guess there's different types of shape when it comes to football. There's gym shape and then there's football shape. Maybe he's just taking a while to get that done. But yeah, I mean, how much will we see? Like, how do they divide the carries? How do they divide the responsibilities? Who's in there on the passing down situations? Who's in there on the early down? I think it's just they're gonna, like you said, ride the hot hand, and whoever that hot hand is gets the ball. But I also thought that last week, and it didn't feel like they rode the hot hand. It felt like Tyson was the hot hand, and they kind of went away from him. So
yeah, no, it's gonna be so interesting. And then you're talking about Le'Veon, and this is looking down the road, but if we already got 3 backs up right now, we're not going 4. So right. Who gets bumped down? You got Latavius, you got Tyson, you got Devante. Is it, a pivot between Devante and Le'Veon? Is it Tyson getting knocked off the totem pole? It's going to be really interesting to see. Or, I mean, who knows? Do they just part ways with Le'Veon? Maybe he wasn't as advertised.
Very true. And they could do so without really, losing out on much.
Right.
So yeah, I'd be surprised to see Tyson be the odd man out if they do only keep 3. I don't see him getting demoted. That would be really shocking to see him go to like the practice.
I think it would have to be Devante, right?
It would have to be it would have to be. Well, I think it'd have to be Le'Veon or Devante. I think. Well,
that's what I mean. Sorry, if we were inserting Le'Veon, I think it would have to be Devante, right?
Yeah, because I think Latavius Murray, he's the younger out of the bat, even though he's still 30. He's the younger of the guys. He's the closer to having success. He's coming off his best year. The other guys certainly can't say the same. So it's going to be. This is a big week for the running backs to see who kind of takes hold of this, because I think the job of being the one, even though they say it's a committee and it might be 1 and 1A, but I still think there's a job open and somebody has to go take that one spot and be that
it's
guy.
More of a confidence thing, right, for the coaches to know, okay, this is a crucial play, this is the guy we put in, right? Like, it's not even about always just a volume, but it's about the confidence, like you were talking about, where in situations, this is our guy, there's no question about it.
Right, exactly. And you feel good about it. Exactly. So, all right, but now moving to the air, Sammy Watkins led the team with 8 targets, turned that into 4 catches for 96 yards, including the 49-yard long that he had. And then Marquis Brown, I think, was one of the very bright spots of this game. He caught all 6 of his targets for 69 yards and the touchdown. Thought he looked quick, looked fast. Obviously, the chemistry is still there between him and Lamar. Yeah, exactly. And the good thing about the injury report is he did return to practice yesterday. So a couple guys returned to practice, Marquis Brown being one of them. And then Devin Duvernay also returned in a limited fashion, as well as Dalen Hayes, Marlon Humphrey, and Jimmy Smith all were limited participants. So hopefully that means they're going to be out there. We certainly need those guys, need all the help we can, because these injuries have been unbelievable. But what did you see from Marquis Brown, and what kind of game do you think he could be in for this Sunday?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because Tyrann Mathieu coming back this game, so that'll certainly help their secondary. And so I don't want to give you my answer yet because it's going to give away some of my key players and how I think this offense is going to run this week. So I'm going to plead the fifth on this one and let you guys know a few minutes down the road, I'm going to answer this question, Glenn, because I think you'll be surprised by my answer, certainly. So I'm going to kick that can down the road.
Okay, that's fair. Well, I certainly know this. He's got to do something for the Ravens to have a chance, and so hopefully he does so. But you're right. Tyrann Mathieu coming back is definitely a big add for them. They got L'Jarius Sneed, who I think is their best corner, and I don't know exactly if he travels from side to side or if he just kind of stays on one area, like Marcus Peters did for us. But it'll be interesting who they deploy him on, because I think obviously when you're playing your former team, that adds a little extra juice, not just for you, but also I think for the rest of the team trying to win that game for you. So I think Sammy Watkins is certainly going to be a big part of this game plan, but there's no denying the chemistry between Hollywood and Lamar Jackson. I think he'll continue to be a guy who gets a ton of targets and gets meaningful targets at that. So interesting to see how that goes. And then another guy I want to talk about offensively is Mark Andrews. He had 5 targets, just had 3 catches for 20 yards. And really in a game where it was, we always talk about these matchups, and oftentimes the matchups are against 2 players on the same, that don't necessarily face off against each other. Like this week, It's Mahomes versus Lamar. Last week, a lot of talk was between Mark Andrews and Darren Waller, and it was it was a pretty lopsided affair as far as them 2 matching up against each other, with Darren Waller getting 19 targets and turning into 10 catches. It seemed like every time they dropped back, they threw the ball to Darren Waller. Not the same for Mark Andrews, just 3 catches. What is this a situation where you think that the Raiders just took him out of the game and didn't allow him to kind of make his presence felt, or what do you?
No, I mean, I think overall, and I mentioned this in our recap, we got too cute. We got too cute, and we got too multifaceted. How about that word, DK?
Okay.
In our approach, and we muddied up the waters. So I would say, no, I don't think they took him out of the game. Yeah, like everyone goes back to that play. It was a big play where he dropped it and things like that. But no, I'm ready to get into it. Can we get to our keys to the game offensively before we move to the defense? Because I'm feeling,
if you want,
extremely positive about this game, Glenn. And
did you want to give any? You said you were going to give something about their week 1 game, but if you just want to
So the
jump
way
right
that we'll do that is we'll do that once we get to our defense. We'll reference their offense. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. Fair. Yep.
So they gave up All right. This is what I want to do here. I'm gonna talk about my keys to the game, and I want to start off by mentioning a few things. Let's see here. All right, here we go. So this last week, I think we saw the formula for success on the other side of the ball. All right. Something that I noticed, and this is my key to the game. This is a long-winded key to the game, but this might be my soapbox of the day. You talked about Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown. Obviously, we have Sammy Watkins. There's a lot of narratives. There's Orlando Brown on the other side. There's a Lamar Pat scenario going on. But this is what I think will happen in this week. And folks, ladies and gentlemen, full disclosure, I picked the Chiefs to win this game. 5 minutes ago, I changed it. I couldn't do it. Okay, I just couldn't change colors. And the reason is this. I think the Ravens come back and they get back to basics, ladies and gentlemen. It's like this. We need to run the ball and we need to throw the ball to 89. And Mark, and it's really that simple. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. Marquis Brown, I don't care about your feelings. Sammy Watkins, I don't care that this is your former team. I care about none of it. If we're going to win this game, it's really simple. LJ is our bell cow, if you will, as far as volume of carries. And then Tyson and Devante and Latavius step their game up, and we throw the ball to 89. I don't want the ball going anywhere else. I think that Mark Andrews balls out in this game. Now, I'm being a bit facetious. Of course, other people have to get catches. But Waller got 19 targets. I want to see 8 to 12 targets going right to 89 because I don't think they have anyone that is looking forward to guarding Mark Andrews. Now, they also gave up a lot of chunk plays last week in the run game, so I think that will help him significantly. And so I'm looking forward to our run game getting an uptick. So really, my keys to the game are simple offensively. Let me read how I put them down. Take a breath, run the ball, take it one play at a time, and execute. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. I don't. Everyone talks about how there's no egos in this locker room. Then fine. Marquis, you're getting 3 targets, bro. Make the best of them. Andrew's getting the rest. Like, it's just, like, look, the Raiders, there was no hiding it. There's no hiding it. We knew what they were doing, and they did it anyway. And I think that we need to get back to that because while the manifestation of that will look different in our offense, people know we're running the ball. Do it anyway, Greg. Stop getting cute, Greg. Like, come on, Gimli. Right. You got this, bro. Don't overcomplicate it.
Stick with what you're good at and just do it, right? I mean,
yeah, until he gets a win, he's no longer Greg Roman. He's Gimli.
Okay, all right, I like it.
That's my key to the game. Sorry, I wanted to get to that because it's been burning up on my insides all week, and I'm like, all right, look, I need to get this out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I should just go into my key, right?
Yes, please do.
All right. Well, mine is simple. Mine is play perfect, right? That's simple.
Yeah, not a big task.
Offensively, you got to play perfect. But what I mean by that is the style in which the offense plays, and I think that the same can really be said about every game, but specifically when you're playing a team like the Chiefs that can score quickly, can score in volume, are never out of the game. I think you have to play perfect offensively. The scheme in which the Ravens play, they can't afford mistakes, right? They can't afford penalties. They can't afford a holding penalty on first down because it's not their style to pick up big chunks of yards on every play. Like the Chiefs, their style is to throw the ball around. Well, throwing the ball oftentimes picks up chunk plays, right? So they're built to play behind the chains, play from a deficit. The Ravens are the opposite. They're built to get a lead, then take the clock away, force you out of your game plan, force you to have to try and score quickly because they're going to take 8-minute drives and put up points. But that gets derailed if you fall short in the red zone. If you have an offensive penalty, especially a pre-snap offensive penalty, or those 10-yard holding penalties, which I almost rather have those than those pre-snap ones because a lot of times holding, you're a tackle who's beat and you're reaching out and grabbing for dear life to save Lamar. Okay, that I don't like it, but those pre-snap false starts. You can't have those. You can't have alignment errors. You can't have those shoot yourself in the foot type penalties because this offense just isn't built to play from behind the chains. And so you have to play perfect from a penalty standpoint, but you also cannot turn the ball over. You cannot give the Kansas City Chiefs short fields, and you cannot give up these limited possessions that the Ravens are going to have. I think you have to take advantage of every single possession. So got to keep the ball ahead of the chains, and you got to keep the ball in your quarterback's hands. You can't go coughing it up, whether that's fumbles or that's throwing the ball to the other team. So when I say play perfect, I mean no mistakes that are self-inflicted. I mean, the defense is going to make plays, right? That's just how it is. So, but you can absorb those as long as you're not making mistakes yourself and given the opportunity, just doing them a favor by hurting yourself. So that's my thing to this game. No pre-snap penalties. Got to hold on to the football. No drops from you got to play perfect if you're going to beat a team that's this good, that's been the best team over the last 3 years. I get that they lost in the Super Bowl last year, but it's hard to argue that they've been the best team the last 3 years. So you got to play perfect offensively. Cannot give them anything. They got to go out and earn it.
Yeah, it makes me think of, do you remember that in Lamar's first year, that big primetime game against the Chargers, we took them down in the regular season? It makes me think of that because I felt like that game was one of the Ravens' most complete games as far as an offense goes, and where the game was competitive, if that makes sense. Like, that was an intense game. Every play mattered, and I don't recall a ton of big mistakes where, like you're saying, we made them blink first. They made mistakes first. Now, when you got Philly Riv under center, you can guarantee a couple mistakes. But at the end of the day, I think that is a good example of what you're referring to. That type of a game where at the end of the day, who cares what the score is? Who cares what it looks like? But execution is priority number one. Right? I agree with you 1,000%. I really think that. Look, you know what this game is to me, Glenn? I'm feeling it now. I'm telling you, I'm getting in preacher mode. I'm standing right now, ladies and gentlemen. I'm like, I got the pulpit in front of me. That's right, man. Look, this is how I'm feeling. You remember that game 6, Boston and Miami, when everyone was talking about LeBron this, LeBron that.
Big three?
Yeah, can't get past him. He's a choke artist. He did that and the other. You remember that Achilles game with Kobe when he just went off with reckless abandon? I think it's one of those games this week for Lamar. He's like, screw looking ahead. I don't care about week 3. I don't care about obviously he cares about these things, but like in his head, I don't care about the contract. I don't care about, he's going to be so present in this moment that he doesn't leave himself room to think about anything else. I think that's when Lamar Jackson is dangerous. And I'm telling you what, man, he's going to come out guns blazing this game. But you're right, because you have to find a balance between being like that and executing. And so I hope Lamar Jackson takes his cordyceps before this game so he can be hyper focused, ready to go, and just light it up.
What is that? What is that?
It's a performance mushroom. It's like not a psychedelic or anything like that. It's
okay. Never even heard of that. Man, what kind of stuff is Jimbo
incredible.
Into?
Good stuff, man. But no, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I agree with your key 100%. I'm interested to know what DK's key of the game is offensively. DK, throw your key of the game here up on the banner, man, because, all right, let's see. Offensive line play needs to improve to give LJ a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, did you guys see that video of the play where the guys were confused, the pulling players were confused?
And they ran into each other?
Literally ran into each other like children. I mean, children that at a fire drill. That's exactly what it made me think of. Kids at a fire drill in first grade that don't know where to go and they just smash into each other.
I used to referee Pee Wee football, and that's what it would look like in that week 1 Pee Wee football. It's not a good look if you're the offensive coordinator or offensive line coach. Jeez. I get there was some moving parts, some guys going in and out. You can't have that happen. I 100% agree.
When you're getting paid to do this and you're not doing it for fun on Saturdays, that's a problem.
That's a huge problem. And look, I know this isn't the offensive line we all envision, but you can't have those types of mental errors. I mean, if you get beat by the guy in front of you, that's one thing. But not even knowing which direction you're supposed to pull or if you're supposed to pull at all, it's an inexcusable error. And I don't care if you're the backup who just came in, you can't make that mistake. And then obviously, got to keep Lamar upright. I mean, I think DK is 100% right. This guy cannot be doing the drop back and then drop your eyes and looking at the pass rush and not keeping your eyes down the field because you have no faith in your guys in front. And unfortunately, when you have a 54% pressure rate, I don't care who you are, you're going to be peeking down at the offensive line because you have no confidence that they can keep you upright.
Mm-hmm. But in that, I'll add a positive spin to that.
Okay.
In that, the fact that I don't think our offensive line is going to improve that much. I think they will improve in their execution, but it might not look that much better. I think the stats might be similar. It will give Lamar an opportunity to take some ankles this game. And I think that Tyrann Mathieu is about to get folded like a cheap poker table. I think he's going to be in an opportunity to take on Lamar. And end of story. I'm excited to see it, man. I was so doom and gloom this morning. I don't know what changed. I just feel good about this game.
I love it.
Taking them down.
I love it. I hope you're right. So as far as the defensive keys, I want to talk a little bit about what the Chiefs did last week when they beat the Browns, and really an incredible game. And I want to give a little bit of context here. So last week, Pat Mahomes, 27 of 36, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, was sacked twice. Another fantastic game by Pat Mahomes. He looked like Pat Mahomes. He looked really good. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, second year back out of LSU. He had 14 carries for just 43 yards.
How are you liking that pick right now?
You talking about for my fantasy team?
Yeah.
Not great. Not great. I mean, I'd like to see him catch a few balls out of the backfield. I mean, he had 3 catches, 29 yards. So you like that, but anyway, I don't want to talk about my fantasy team because it's against the team we're playing, and so I hope he does horrible this year. I mean, this game. I hope he does horrible this game and then bounces back in a big way for the rest of the season. But what's interesting about them is they're so opposite us in that they don't need a running game to support and open up lanes for their passing game, right? The passing game. It creates they do it opposite. Their passing game creates opportunities in their run game, not the other way around like it does for us. So they can afford to have a performance like that where their leading rusher has 43 yards, where their leading rusher isn't averaging 4 yards a carry. It's just, what they get on the ground is more of a bonus rather than, something they need. So you got to slow down that passing game. That's the only way. Now, the team was built in theory to slow down passing, right? They got a great secondary. They spent a lot of money on that secondary. They added some pieces to the pass rush, but now we kind of got a depleted group back there, so it's going to be certainly a team effort, but this is the guy you got to focus on. Last week, see, this is what has me worried. My key last week was to stop Darren Waller. If you remember before the game.
You're going to talk about Ty Hill?
Yeah. Before the game, I said, don't let Darren Waller beat you. Well, Tyreek Hill last week had 11 catches for 197 yards
15
and a touchdown.
Targets, right?
So, on 15 targets. Last week, Darren Waller had 19 targets. So, but here's the problem. It's not like their second guy is Hunter Renfrow, who's a good player, but their second guy in Kansas City is Travis Kelce, so who's arguably the best tight end in all of football, who a lot say are even better than the guy that just scorched him last week in Darren Waller. He had 6 catches for 76 yards last week, and more importantly, had 2 touchdowns. So their 1-2 punch is clearly that. Like, those are the 2 guys. And we had Charles Goldman on, who writes for the Kansas City Chiefs Wire. He said, and I asked him about who's the next guy after those 2. Who's that next guy? And he said, well, McCole Hardman might get 3 targets. Robinson might get 2 to 3 targets. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the same can be said for him out of the backfield. It's really about those 2 guys. And good luck stopping them is basically, kind of how he put it. I mean, Jimbo, when you see these 2 guys coming into town with Pat Mahomes slinging the rock, how do they slow that? They couldn't slow down Darren Waller. So how are they going to slow down Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce?
I mean, I'm feeling a little nervous. You're knocking me down a few pegs here, Glenn. But certainly, I mean, being realistic, it makes me nervous. However, the difficult thing for me is not, I mean, Tyreek Hill is impossible to guard, but we have some sort of a solution in Humphrey, right? Something that we can throw at him to say, okay, let's try and mitigate this at the very least, as much as possible to reduce damage, right?
Yeah.
But the problem for me is we have no answer for Travis Kelce. 0, zilch, nothing. Literally nothing. I mean, Jimmy is not going to be out there. He would be our only
Any chance he's out there? He had a limited participation. He's listed as questionable.
And even if he is out there at this point with the ankle, is he not getting spun up by Travis Kelce?
It's going to be, I mean, that's a tough athlete to guard. And if you're healthy, it's a tough athlete to guard.
Right. So, man, that one has me really, really worried. But if you can take one of them out of the game, see, that's just an impossible task anyway. But if you can take one of them out of the game, and maybe, Belichick will do his best to do that and say, you are not beating us this way. Right? Yeah. Like if you can take 10 or Kelce out of this game, then it's kind of instead of saying they have a pick your poison type scenario at every play, if we can make it, okay, you're going to Kelce, you're not going to Hill every single time, that could help. But it concerns me. And I mean, if you're wanting to know what my concern level is, it's 10. And I'm counting on one person to make up for all of this. And it's number 8.
Yeah.
That's my only hope. That's my only play that I have in this game to keep me hopeful, is that I think we have the most explosive player in the NFL.
Yeah. I got to agree with you there. And
it has nothing to do with our defense, but my defensive key to the game. Okay. Wait, okay, here we go. My defensive key to the game here. Well, you didn't state your key explicitly, did you?
No, bad. Not yet. No, that's okay. I mean, I wasn't really. No, that's fine. I was just kind of covering what they did last week. But my key would be to play for all 4 quarters, because I think the Ravens did a fantastic job in the first half, causing some misfires from Derek Carr. And I think on the first 8 or 9 targets for Waller, he had like 1 catch. So they did a good job on him. In the second half, especially the fourth quarter and overtime, it was bad news out there. I mean, it seemed like the receivers were running free. I mean, when you have a 3-point lead with 30-something seconds left and they have no timeouts and you're kicking the ball off, you're feeling pretty good about winning that game. And then, of course, they take 2 plays, get into field goal range, spike the ball, and kick the game-tying field goal. And we all know what happened in overtime. So you got to play for all 4 quarters. You can't have another situation where we played well in the first half, because it doesn't matter if you don't back it up and play well down the stretch. We saw that. I mean, would they have 14 points or 17 points in the they scored 7. The Raiders scored 17 points in the fourth quarter. That can't happen. Right. That absolutely can't happen. And if the Raiders can do it, I mean, certainly the Chiefs can score
70.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to play disciplined 4-quarter football. This can't be a scenario where you're gassed or I know there was injuries on the back end that certainly hindered the Ravens' ability to play at their best. But no matter who's in there, you got to play, you got to perform, and you got to do so for 4 quarters.
Yeah, no, I agree. Speaking about our defense, I'll give my key to the game here. But what do you think about the Orlando Brown-Udafe matchup, where Orlando was, I don't care what anyone says, Orlando Brown played poorly. Mm-hmm. You can be, anyway, I think that speed, of course, of Myles Garrett really, really hurt him. Now, Udafe is not Myles Garrett as a football player. I think that's fair to say.
Right.
As much as, there might be Udafe lovers out there, that's fine. But it is also fair to say, and I'll give him credit, he is certainly most likely going to beat Myles Garrett in a foot race.
Straight line foot race? Yeah.
Yeah. However, the difference is, what's that explosion like? Off the line, does that translate? Because that was killing Orlando Brown Jr.
Yeah.
And so that matchup is going to be fun to watch. Certainly, they both got a lot to play for. They literally, essentially, were traded for each other. Mm-hmm. And that's going to add some fuel to the fire. Justin Houston going against his former team.
Yep. That's going
to add some fuel to the fire. So that'll be fun to watch as well. But my defensive key to the game, Glenn, is, and this is why I'm referencing the pass rush. This is a given thing. Like, we got to get to Pat with 4.
Mm-hmm.
We have to. We just have to, because we saw what happened last year. So Calais, he's going up against some interior guys that are young. The whole right side of that offensive line is young. And if Justin Houston is over there, I think there'll be it's fair for us to expect as fans that a future Hall of Famer wins the majority of his matchups against rookies.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's fair to say. I think that it's fair to say that Calais Campbell beating a rookie center is an expectation at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or a guard, because that right side of the line right there is not great. Udafe, that's going to be an interesting matchup. And then Justin Metabike, he had moments where he was throwing guys like absolute dolls in that Raiders game, but I want to see more. I want to see more finishing the play. I want to see more getting there, more overall impact to help those
Certainly
guys
in the
on the outside
passing
open
game.
up. Yeah, absolutely. So my key to the game is get to Pat with 4. And I'll say on top of that, with the 4, find ways to get creative. Like I know, if you're not dialing up a blitz, it's much more difficult to get creative. But I like what the Bucs will do. They'll put their big guys on the outside, put the speedy guys on the inside, just to change it up, right? Like see what works, see what you can do. Get creative with it as much as you can. So my key to the game is get to Pat with 4 defensively. DK, what do you got, dude?
Not so aggressive. Don't play into the Chiefs' hands. And I think what he's referring to is, last year it seemed like every single time the Ravens drew up especially those zero blitzes that they like to run, and we saw plenty of them against the Raiders, they always had the perfect man beater, the screen, just had the perfect play call that led to not just an easy catch, but a ton of opportunity for yak yards after that. And it killed the Raven. It was always seemed to be in those big time situations, third down, where they needed to get the stop to force a punt, and they just simply dump it right over the head of the pass rush, and get a big time play that gets them into not just a first down, but gets them into scoring range. So I definitely agree there. You have to mix it up. We saw too often, and look, I watched the telecast with Eli and Peyton Manning, and it was a little frustrating in the sense that they were like, look, I mean, I get that this is the Ravens style, but if you don't have those guys that you were expected to have on the back end that can hold up in those cover zero situations, then you're going to have just receivers running free, and you're going to have a defender chasing him. And oftentimes the offensive player is faster than the defensive player. So it's an opportunity for huge chunk plays. So I don't want them to completely abandon that, but they gotta mix it up. I think DK's right. You gotta mix it up. You gotta throw some zone in there. And I get it. Look, when they did run some zone, it didn't look like they did a ton of practicing it. So it didn't look like that's certainly not their forte. But I don't know what it is. If you want to show blitz, then drop into like cover 2 man. Whatever it is, you got to mix it up, and you can't let him know what you're doing pre-snap, which I know they're going to motion guys. They're going to try and figure out exactly what you're in, and then game plan, adjust accordingly. So, it's going to be interesting to see how Wink manages this game after last week and after last year.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, so let's move on here. Keep this thing moving, because we do have an announcement to make about our weekly contest winner. So make sure you stay tuned if you participate in the contest, because in a few minutes we'll be letting you guys know who won. You probably already know who you are, but just in case, we will get to that. But let's get to our breakout players offensively and defensively, Glenn. All right, so I'm going to start this one, and I talked about it before, the Ravens simplifying their offense, right? And Lamar, us depending on Lamar, him being the bell cow in the run game, I don't think that's necessarily sustainable, but I think it can get us the W in this game, and I think Lamar's not looking ahead. All that said, I think Mark Andrews is the breakout offensive player of the game for me. 2 touchdowns, 100-plus yards. Now, that is a huge game for Mark Andrews, not just from a touchdown standpoint, because yardage last year, he averaged, 50 a game. So I'm doubling that. I think he has a huge, huge game production-wise, double-digit targets, maybe, I would say 8 receptions, 2 touchdowns, 100-plus yards. Mark Andrews is balling out, showing people why he got paid. I think he puts a lot on his shoulders and holds himself accountable, and I think he will bounce back in a big, big way. Tyrann Mathieu is not going to be able to handle him. Daniel Sorensen, who, don't get me started on Sorensen, has no chance against our guy. I think he's going to make some guys look bad, and he's going to ball out this week.
Well, I certainly hope you're right about that, because he had a bit of a disappearing act last week, and of course had that huge drop. So he definitely has reason to bounce back after signing that big deal. But for me, Jimbo, the breakout offensive player is going to be Sammy Watkins. We know how these guys like playing their former team, and what kind of motivation that brings to not just them, but the guys around him wanting to do it for him. And I think that he wants to show out. He was just kind of the decoy there. He was kind of the guy that worked to get those other guys open. This is obviously a different scenario, and I think he wants to show the Chiefs. That look, this is I can still be more than just a complimentary player. I can be a primary focus on offense and make big time plays in big time games. He seemed excited when I was listening to his presser.
Yeah.
He seemed hyped, ready for this game, ready to show these guys what he's got. And last week he led the team in targets. He had 8 targets that he turned into some big plays there. So I'm excited to see what he's got in store. I think that the Chiefs will probably wisely be looking out for guys like Hollywood, who certainly turned all 6 targets into 6 catches. I think he's going to get a lot of their focus. I think Andrews will as well, and of course Lamar Jackson will get all of their attention. But I'm looking for Sammy Watkins to get another big play. He had the 49-yarder last week. I think he gets another big-time play, and I think this one leads to a score. So watch out for Sammy Watkins. Getting a little retribution, a little bit of revenge, I guess. It seemed like he had a great time there, but certainly wants to beat the Chiefs and wants to show them what they're missing since he's been gone.
DK, who you got, my man?
Tyson Williams. And he says 2 tubs. I like it. The thing I was looking at last week's game, Jimbo, and tell me what you think. When I'm looking at what Cleveland was able to do to really take Kansas City right to the brink, and if it doesn't, it's not for Baker Mayfield doing what Baker Mayfield does, which is throw the ball to the other team in big situations. They have a really good shot to win that game. Nick Chubb had 15 carries, 83 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Kareem Hunt, 6 carries, 33 yards, and a touchdown. Both average 5.5 per carry. So is this the Tyson Williams show, Jimbo?
I sure hope so. Sure hope so. I like DK's pick, and I think if that's the case, we got a solid chance of winning this game. Look, between 2 tutties that way, Lamar gets 1, and Andrews gets 2. Hey, I think we're starting to talk about winning a football game, gentlemen.
Absolutely. So
let's move over to the defensive end here. And Glenn, I'll let you kick this one off. Who is your defensive breakout player of the game?
Yeah, another player facing his former team. It's Justin Houston. I think this guy is like you said, he's facing a really young right side. Creed Humphrey being a rookie. The right guard comes in and he's a rookie and takes the job from Tardif and the guy who opted out last year, to go become a doctor. And then they have the right tackle who again beat out another veteran for the job. So it's a good offensive youth. It's a good young group offensively, but they're still young, right? And they're still going to have some things that they've never seen before coming at them this Sunday. And I think Justin Houston reaps the benefits of that. Causes a little confusion. Wink will cause some confusion up front. And it's another situation where they love playing their former team, love getting up. And what better game to show out and show why the Ravens got you here than taking on the AFC defending champions and making your presence felt. I think that they know they got to get to Pat Mahomes. They got to get him on the ground and at the very least disrupt the timing of that offense. And I think Justin Houston's going to say, follow me, young guys. I'm going to show you the way. And I think he gets a couple of sacks in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. This one is going to be a lot of fun. I'm interested to see, because people could say, well, they held up against, Garrett and Clowney. But the one thing that's for sure is that no one has more tricks in the bag than Justin Houston when you're talking about even those guys based on his tenure in the league. And I think it's fair to say that from a pure pass rush standpoint, he's better throughout his career. I mean, look at his numbers. It's insane. People could say Myles Garrett's a better football player, but when you're talking about rushing the quarterback and beating the guy in front of you, I think that Justin Houston is the best of them, even at this advanced age, based on his technique, his experience, and I think he's going to teach these guys a thing or two. Hopefully they got them lunch pails.
A lot of confidence in Justin Houston from Jimbo.
In this situation, definitely, because I think these young guys are going to get eaten alive. So my guy, though, my defensive breakout play of the game is 32, the Joker, Deshaun Elliott. I've been high on him since this offseason, getting his hands on the football. I know Pat Mahomes is incredible in September. He's just basically incredible, which makes me cringe to say. But it is a fact. But I think Deshaun Elliott gets his hand on a football. I'm going to say off of a tip. I think that Calais gets his hand up there, flies up in the air. Deshaun gets the ball. I'm not saying he takes it back for a touchdown, but I think he has a big game, including an interception. Maybe winning the turnover battle with that interception and thus, spinning the game in our favor. What about you?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like it. I think that's his chance is a tip ball, maybe a ball he's trying to get into Kelsey. It gets batted up in the air, gets bounce off his hands after a guy gets his hand in there, and then Deshaun Elliott's right place, right time, makes the play. It could certainly be a game-changing play, no doubt about it. But DK, who's your defensive breakout player of the game? Uh-oh. Jimbo getting look, DK says Odafe Owe gets another sack, making Jimmy nervous. Absolutely. He can put on his poker face all he wants, but seeing Odafe get number 1 last week, knowing that he's got 16 more games to get to that double-digit number, and I think Jimmy's a little more nervous than he's going to let on, even in this episode. But I also agree in the sense that I think Wink would love to see a highlight on SportsCenter or ESPN later on Monday morning or later Sunday night that shows Odafe beating Orlando Brown and getting to Pat Mahomes, because that would just be like, look, this is why, Eric DeCosta, same to me said, this is why we traded, pretty much them for one another. And of course, a couple other picks on the back end there. But I think he would love to see Odafe Owe show out and show why he was such a high pick for them.
Yeah, I would love it too. I said it. I'll eat this microphone cover gladly. Maybe not gladly, but certainly
I don't
willingly.
think you'll be too glad. Second bite.
Willingly to do so. I'll willingly do so if he is productive and if it's in the sake of winning. So yeah, hey, I ain't mad at it. Glenn, wait, you already told us you got Houston. All right, Glenn, I'm gonna let you do us the honors here. So this week, of course, as you know, this has kind of been my baby in the weekly competition for the over-under, and DK is the king of that. Now he is on the show. So this is how we stake. This is how you stake your claim as participants in the show as true football minds or not. This is how serious we take your opinion based on your accuracy here. Okay. Last week we put out the contest. Anybody can participate. We're doing it every week. You get a t-shirt sent to you. We had over-under categories, and then as tiebreakers, exact like total scores and rushing totals, and it's different every week. But the point is, last week we had a winner, and he left his comment on YouTube. Glenn, tell us about it.
Yeah, our winner was a frequent commenter and longtime supporter, and it was Troy. So congratulations, Troy. He nailed
on a first name basis.
Yeah, he nailed all the over-unders exactly and was so close on the rushing total and the score. I think he was off by a total of 4 when you combined he was a little, I think, under on the rushing total. Or he was 1 over in the rushing total, and I think 3 off in the total score. So darn near ran the table and barely beat out a couple other guys who were very close as well. So it was definitely down the stretch, a heated battle. So congratulations to Troy, knocked it out of the park. And it always gives awesome comments, funny comments. So appreciate your participation and congratulations, Troy, on being
and Troy
our week 1 winner.
logistically. Yeah, absolutely. Gotta clap it up for old Troy. So that's right. So logistically, though, Troy, really simple. On Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, just DM us your email. We will email you back, and then you can just send us over your address, and we will mail the shirt right out to you. All we'll need is just a
get us your size as well.
Yeah. Good point, Glenn. Address and size, and we'll get your shirt out. But shout out to Troy once again. Woo!
Yeah.
Blowing the mic out over here.
Troy.
Oh my gosh. No wonder my mics don't last.
That's right. But let's get into this week's over-under competition, right, Jimbo, because we got another good one here.
I'm just trying to beat DK. Jeez.
I know. Every time. Don't worry, folks. His reign is not over. He still destroyed both me and Jimmy in our over-under competitions. Got all of them right. Was way closer on his predictions. So this time I'm coming for you, DK. I'm coming. I don't like losing. I know Jimmy doesn't either. And I'm going to win this week. And this week I'm not just going to follow what you said. I'm going to go opposite in a lot of ways and hopefully that'll give me the edge. But this week, the first over-under we're going to start with, look, there's no secret that Andrews had a disappointing game last week. He needs to bounce back this week. I know where Jimmy's going in this one because it was his offensive player.
Yeah.
We set the over-under. Now, maybe we were a little too light. We set it at 40.5, but let's remind everyone, last year he averaged 50 yards a game. So this isn't a guy who averages 98. This isn't a guy who averages huge numbers. Big in our offense, but not big, in the grand scheme of things. So we set the over-under at 40.5 yards for this week, which, look, last week he had 20. So this is doubling what his last week totals were. For me, I got to go over. I know that they're going to be focused on him, but I just can't imagine another game in which Andrews underperforms that bad, that poorly. I think he bounces back. I think the Ravens want him to bounce back, so the game plan will reflect that. They just paid the guy. They don't want a guy they just gave all this money to go out there and put back-to-back stinker of performances out there. So I think that he's going to be a big part of their game plan, and they're going to say, look, you can try and take him away, but we're going to devise our offense and our scheme to where it doesn't really matter what you do. He's going to get the ball. He's going to get opportunities to make big plays. And then Andrews just has to do it. He had a big drop in overtime that would have been a first down, and who knows what happens after that point if he holds on to that rock, and maybe the Ravens get into field goal range when that's all they needed. So I say over. What say you, Jimbo?
I'm going over. You already know it. Andrews is going 100+ in this game, triple digits. Feeling good about it. He's having a serious bounce back game. That is the one that I probably feel most confident about. Going over Andrews. Okay. DK? I'm calculating. Over. All right. So.
And we may have been a little low on that over-under, but look, after last week, we had to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, but the next one is going to be fun. So Lamar Jackson total yards. Last week he had 321 against the Raiders. Last season, didn't you say, Glenn, he averaged 251?
Yeah, he averaged 183 in the air and 67 on the ground.
Right, and so 320 in total is based off of last week's game as a baseline 320.5. And I'll start this one off, Glenn. I changed it literally 40 seconds before we got into the segment. I was reviewing it one more time, make sure I feel good. A lot of my life decisions go with my gut. I know that's a heck of a lot of yards, but I'm going with my gut here, Glenn. Lamar's going 320 plus. He might break 350 in this game. Lamar Jackson is balling out. I feel confident in this over. Not as confident as Mark Andrews, but very confident nonetheless. Lamar Jackson, over.
Wow. You know what? I agree with you. I think he goes over that total as well. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the next one. I got him under, Jimbo. I got him under. But that could be a good thing. Because I think if he has a crazy amount of passing yards, that's probably because they're behind or they're fighting for. So when I say under, this is because I'm hopeful that this is a more typical Ravens offensive game where we don't necessarily light up the yardage. We take our small amount or smaller than other teams amount of possessions and just make the most of them, drain a lot of clock, eat up some yards, but don't have 20 drives. You only get 10 to 12 drives, and you turn those into to points. But I do think that he goes under the 320. And let me remind everyone: look, he only had 250 yards a game total last year. Was his average. So he had 183 in the air and 67 on the ground. So 320 is 70 yards above his average of last year. So it's not like I'm saying he's going to put up a stinker of a game. I just think 320 for Lamar, if they're playing the game they want to play, is a little high. So I'm hopeful that they do so. They spread the ball around, and we see some yardage totals from other guys and not just from Lamar.
Yeah. Daniel, who you got? What you got? Over, under? Over. He's feeling it too. I like it. The consensus. Here we go.
That's my first disagreement with him, and I like it because I'm going to win this.
All right, so we'll go defensive here. Passing yards allowed, over, under 350.5. Glenn, kick this one off here.
Yeah, so passing yards allowed. We set it at 350 because this is the Chiefs we're talking about here. They're pretty much a one-sided affair on offense, and that one side is really, really good. But not in this one. I think that they go under their 350, and I think that what people have to remember is last week, while he had a great game, Pat Mahomes did. He only threw for 337 yards. So this isn't like I don't think unreasonable to expect him to go under that. I understand that typically he matches up well. Their offense matches up well against our defense, our style of defense. So that could bode well for him. But I just think that the Ravens do a better job this week at preventing some of these crazy big plays through the air that we saw the Raiders make. And I think he's going to be forced to take what the defense gives him, which is more short yardage and more under routes. And that causes him to go just shy of that 350 total. What about you, Jimbo?
Yeah, so I'm going over. I think this game is going to look different than games in the past. And I think the scoreboard is going to be lighten up frequently. And I think we find a way to keep pace. But I don't think it's just a control possession and time of possession type thing. I think the Ravens are going to look a little different this week. So I'm going over. I think that Pat Mahomes does this thing, goes over. But hopefully it's mitigated by the efforts of our offense. So I'm going over. What about you, DK?
Oh, man. Over as well. Yeah,
I think he's picking over for a different reason than I.
Yeah, the frowny face may give us a little bit of a sneak peek, a little foreshadowing there from DK. But, yeah, I mean, I think over is certainly what the majority of people are going to say. But, look, 350 is a lot of yards through the air. So,
yeah,
it could be a shootout if he gets over that. But defensively, we do have sacks is our second one.
Yeah.
And the sack total is going to be huge this week. They got to get to him. I mean, I think that if you notice when the Browns did make a big play against them, it was their front getting to him. It was Myles Garrett beating Orlando Brown. It was that's what it takes to get these guys off the field on third down. You can get them to 3rd and 11, 3rd and 14. And for most teams, their percentages of picking that up are really low, but it's different when it's the Chiefs. It's different. I mean, they can pick up big plays seemingly at will. So you got to get to the passer, at least disrupt the timing and at least throw them off in some way. You don't always have to get there, but I think you have to, at least hurry them, force them into some bad throws. But to me, I think they go over that 3.5. I'm confident. They got 4 sacks last week. We saw that the offensive line didn't play horrible for the Chiefs. Again, they're going up against Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. When they're healthy and both in there, 2 of the very best at their position. But I think the group overall for the Ravens is a little bit better in that regard. Now, those 2 are the clear standouts. There's no doubt about it. But when you look at all the Ravens are going to be bringing, that sack by Pat Queen, I mean, how can you avoid – there's not many guys that can avoid that blur coming up the middle and getting to you, I think Odafe Owe is going to have a game. I think he's going to have a sack. And, of course, Justin Houston was my breakout player. So I think he has a sack or 2 under his belt. So I think they get to 4, maybe 5 sacks this week.
I hear you. So I hear you, but I don't agree with you. I'm going under. I just think Pat Mahomes is hard to tackle. I think this game's going to look different, like I said, in its appearance. So yeah, I think Pat Mahomes is hard to sack. He's very, he's elusive and he gets the ball out and doesn't take a lot of sacks. So I'm going under here. And DK, what do you got here? We'll have to rapid fire these last ones because you boys got to get some tutoring in.
Absolutely. Yeah. So DK says over.
Over.
Of course he did.
All
he
right.
agreed with me. I mean, I don't blame him.
You guys are wanting to lose this week. That's why. All right.
Now, this one I threw in. I threw this one in, Jimbo, because we forgot to add 2 closest to the pin type. So we got total yards for the Ravens. I got the Ravens going to I got them at 418 total yards. Okay. I mean, I think that that's a good number. I think that Lamar has some good yards through the air, but more importantly, I think they get back to what they do best. We have some big chunk plays on the ground. Last week they had 406 total yards in that overtime loss. Bit of a slow start for them last week. I think in those first couple drives, I think they get back to what they do best. We have a good division of passing and rushing yards, and that grand total goes to 418. What do you got, Jimbo?
Yeah, I got 455 because I saw DK's and I thought it was a little too aggressive, and I took 5 yards off.
Nice. See, this is Price is Right strategy here. What do you got, DK?
DK's got 460. That's right. I thought he's a little ambitious, but I felt like I wanted to be close. So yeah, I'm trying to win this bad boy. Now, total score though. Glenn, give us your total score, and then DK, throw yours up there. I'm gonna save mine for last.
All right, mine is 34-24. Bad guys. I can't pick us to beat the Chiefs with this depleted roster. a team that we haven't beaten yet to this point. I think it's a tough sledding. I'm hopeful that I'm wrong. Believe me, I hope that I am stone cold wrong, and this is an ass whipping that the Ravens put down on the Chiefs. But my score is 34-24 Chiefs with a total of 58.
All right, DK.
Let's see.
35-20. Oh, boy.
See, he's copying off me. I knew it. I mean, I see what we got going on here. 58 total. He's Price is right me. He's trying to say as long as I'm one higher, I got the win.
Well, look, let me tell you what. You're both wrong. Okay? The Ravens are winning this game 34-31. JT's coming through clutch at the end of this game, knocking one home. I think there's going to be a few mistakes. I think Pat Mahomes will let the ball go. I think that we will have – so I think that we will win the turnover battle, and I'm predicting a missed field goal on the side of the Kansas City Chiefs because that is another matchup. Everyone thinks that their kicker is the guy. We all know that we have the best kicker in the NFL, and JT is going to remind everyone, Tony Romo included, who called their kicker the Mariano Rivera of kickers. Shut up, Tony. JT's getting it done at the end of this game. 34-31. Ravens win. I don't care what the roster construction is. Lamar Jackson's putting on the Superman suit, coming out the phone booth. Mark Andrews is going to do his thing, and I think we get the dub. That's right. I couldn't do it.
I love the positivity. I appreciate it. But let us know what you guys think. Remember, whoever wins this week will get a shirt in the mail.
That's right.
Okay.
Submit in the comments. DM us on Twitter. DM us on Instagram. Just make sure in order to win, you got to follow us, sub. You got to follow and follow. So those are the only criteria, and then obviously your guesses.
Yep. Don't forget to add all of them in, the overs, the unders, the totals. Don't miss any of them, and we will certainly announce the winner next week. Again, we will be at the game tomorrow. We will be tailgating. We got some awesome giveaways that we're going to be giving out. We got some just a bunch of stuff that we're going to be giving out. So if you guys see us, I think tomorrow we might tweet out some more details
we'll let you know
on
where
the location.
We're at.
But we'll definitely be tailgating all leading up to the game. Excited to get in there. Excited to scream our heads off. Might have a couple of adult beverages in me. So if you see me, you may see a different look in my eyes, and Jimmy might be holding my hair back. But that's for hopefully not. That's for tomorrow to kind of see what happens there. But let us know if you guys want to come over and say hi, say what's up. We'll chat it up. Let us know where you're sitting. Maybe we can run into you in the concourse. But yeah, excited about tomorrow. Let's go Ravens. We'll see y'all tomorrow.